The idea behind this is to give you an all-in-one framework so that you can play blues, you can play the chords, you can play some lead, and you can mix it up and keep on moving between both of these ideas here. And that's how you express yourself. We don't have to adhere to bars. And I mentioned this in my live when I talked about Sunhouse, and I think it was the guys from Genesis who were like a band that used to back all blues artists that came to the UK. They used to be like a backing band. Sunhouse turned up and they went, okay, we're going to do a 12-bar blues, and they couldn't understand why he was playing 16 blues. And the basic gist is that the blues is however many bars you want it to be. We're going to look at shell chords. It sounds fancy, but basically they are 3-finger chords. So there's no bar chords involved in this. And we've got a little pattern that I'm going to show you first. So I'll show you the chord pattern. I'm going to show you the small scale patterns. We're not going to do huge scale patterns, even though if you remember last week's lesson with the 3 and 2 method to learn the pentatonic patterns, all 5 boxes, then this ties in with that as well. So the thing is, if we learn it with just 2 reference points as scales, then we can build out from that. What we want to do is go somewhere new from somewhere we already know. That's really important. Go somewhere new from somewhere you already know. There's a comfort in that. And if I just landed something on you that you'd never heard of it before and you're thinking, what's the context? Then you're going to go, where's the use? And you won't use it and you won't practice it. Waste of time. Don't that. If we've got 2 little scale patterns that we can do, 2 fragments, we can build that out. You've got a platform, a kind of a scaffold to start from. Actually, somebody mentioned something in the fretboard fraternity. You could tie this in with the elevator triangles lesson, which is in the book. Let's get cracking with this. We need 3 chords to make this blues thing happen. You could do it with 1 chord if you want, but here's the thing. We've got to take part of the L7 grid. Now, if you remember the L7 grid, it goes major, major, major. We go major, major, major there. So chord 1, chord 4, chord 5. And this here is going to be minor, minor, minor. Okay? So that's the L7 grid. It's on the channel. I've done a few videos and I always reference it because it's the gift that keeps on giving. You need to understand the L7 grid. So this is the key that we're in. So we look on the E string for the key that we desire, okay? So I've picked the A here because we're going to do a blues in A. So this is the key note. This is called the tonic because it's the tone of the key. And it's also the root note for chord 1. Yeah, so that's a root note for chord 1. This is the root note for chord 4. Okay? And this is the root note for chord 5. Now, if I relate this to the major chords in the L7 grid, I would get an E-shaped chord here with the root note on the 5th fret on the E string. And then if I go to this one here, I would get an A-shaped chord, right? And then what we do is we move that up a whole step to get to chord 5. So the important thing to know is that we have 3 chords, and this is going to be chord 1, chord 4, chord 5. Those are major chords. Now we can turn those major chords into 7th chords. So what I'm going to do is turn this E chord here into a 7th chord by just taking that pinky off there. I'm not going to get into the theory, but I want you to hear the sound of that. So you can hear how that works there. The thing about the blues is that with this chord 4 from the key, I should get a major 7 there. And I should get a major 7 here. So I should have this. This should be the sound I get. But that's too jazzy. That's too smoochy. These are chords for when you are with the lady of your dreams. And these 7th chords are the chords that you play when the lady of your dreams leaves you. There we go. So there's the blues, right? So we basically discard all the diatonic key information apart from 1, 4 and 5. Because we know that we're starting off with a major sound, there, but we need to turn that into this dominant 7th sound, which is basically major triad, which is this. Look at this, and I will show you this actually. 5th root 3rd, 5R3. There's the 5R3 from the A chord. If I take the root, flatten it once, that's a major 7, which is in the key. And then we take this one, flat 7, is the bluesy sounding one. So we take those 3 notes together, we get the sound of that 7th chord. So that's all contained within there. Now we don't want to do this as a bar chord. We want to make it super easy to launch your fingers from. So if we take this and turn it into a 3-finger chord, which has the money notes in it, it has only the necessary ingredients. This is why it's called a shell chord. It's got the root, it's got the flat 7, which is that sad sounding note. Listen to that against the root note and hear how that works. It sounds a bit odd until we add this 3rd, and now it just sounds wistful. So that is the 7th chord. So basically we take this major, we reduce it down to a 7th bar chord like that, and then what I do is I chuck all the notes away that are doubles like that. I don't need them, and I just get left with those 3 there. Okay, so that is what I'm going to use for chord 1. Now I can use some variations on this, and I do like to use these as well. So when I play this, I sometimes think to myself, well, what if I did keep the 5th in? If the bass player was playing a bass line, then I might want to just play this shape here. Now you might be looking at that and thinking, it looks like a D chord, Ricky, and you would be right. That's a D chord though on the G, B and E strings. This is like a D shape, but on the D, G and B strings there. So it's the same shape there. You can hear, you can mix and match between these 2. And what this means is you can mix up those 2 voicings there. So this is darker and this is brighter. I'm also thinking to myself, which are going to be fingers I can launch from using this idea here. So if I want to go into a lead, the 3rd finger and the 1st fingers are the ones that I want to be most available to me. The 2nd finger as well, you know, hopefully we get all these fingers, but it's like thinking ahead about the launch on this. So we're going to have that. Now, ordinarily, like I said, this is the 4 chord. I've got to change this into a dominant 7th chord, which means it's got a flat 7. Here's the A shape here. We've got the 5th, root, 3rd there. There's the root. Now if I take that back 1, that's what it should be to be in the key of A. Yeah, but we're playing a blues now, so the rules have changed. All the chords are 7th chords. So this is where I find that flat 7. Now ordinarily what it does is it gives me this shape. It's an A7 shape. If you know an A7 down here, you might play like this. That's the same shape that I'm playing here. But I don't want to play the A shape. This is where the cage system comes in super useful. If this is the A shape, one shape down the neck towards the head is the C shape. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this same note here, because that's the root note of the A shape, and it's also the root note of the C shape. Can you see the C shape there, guys? Now put that 7th on there. So now I get this shape here, but I don't want this note because that's a root note. So I'm just repeating that, and it gives me this little 3-fingered shape here, and this is another 7th shell chord. So I could play it like this. It's good to see it like that, because if you want to use those notes that are there for chord tone soloing, so I could use that there, but when I'm just doing simple chords, I want to have that going on there. This is just a simple D7 chord. I've got the root, I've got the 3rd, and I've got that flat 7 just there. And you'll notice, hopefully, you see when I played this one, that flat 7, it's the same shape. There's a flat 7, same thing going on there. The cool thing is, if we had this for chord 4, we could do the same thing for chord 5, which is the real 5. This is the real dominant chord. This always should be a 7th. So I've got those notes. But what I'm going to do is, this is the A shape again, and I'm going to drop it one shape down. Remember, we're going C, A, G, E, D. So there is the root note for the A shape. So going back, there's the root note for the C shape. Yes, I am. I'm using a pick. You don't necessarily have to use a pick if you don't want to. And let me just put the pick down and show you. I might... You don't have to use a pick necessarily. So we've got this here. There's chord 4, there's chord 5. So chord 1, there's chord 4, and there is chord 5 there. Yeah, and that is the idea here, guys. Look, so remember what I said. This note that I'm starting on here is the tonic. That's the key. So let me just show you how you are not stuck in one key with this. You can play in all different keys. So like I said, this is the key of A, because that's the tonic and also the root note for chord 1. Now what happens if I move it down to here? I'm in the key of G. This is a dominant blues in G now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift between these shapes. So there, chord 1, chord 4, chord 5. I could put that anywhere. I could do it down here at F. See, it's a little bit tighter down there, especially on that B flat 7 there. But any key I want, let's do it up here at B. I'll just switch back to the key of A, because I'm at the 5th fret on the E string again. What I find is, watch this 3rd finger here. This 3rd finger is what I call a sliding anchor. I lift these 2 fingers up, slide it back 1 fret, and then put the 2 fingers back on to get that, or the 7th chord. So just working between these. Now here comes chord 5. Slide that 3rd finger up. You can see I'm using that same shape there, but when I'm going from there, all I need to do is move these 2 fingers here. So you can hear there, guys, what I played there was the outline of a 12-bar blues, and that will work in any position, and you can do those in that order. So all that information is essentially there. Page 33, lesson 27. It's that one, lesson 27. Now what we do, we take that same information, and what I did then is I played the blues in A using this idea of this 12-bar blues. Now what I could do, play that A7 there. And here's the rules, guys. If you have a pen and some paper, this is the most basic way you can make it interesting. Now, on that chord 1, 4 and 5, you could play box 1, minor pentatonic. You can give it colour by adding a flat 5 and turning it into a minor blues scale. But really, we want to sound interesting, because if you play just the minor pentatonic on the blues, what will happen is you'll start to sound a bit boring. You'll bore yourself and you think everything starts to sound the same. You start playing the same licks. The real good stuff happens when you mix minor and major sounds. You get interesting things happening, and it involves lots of listening. But the thing that to know is, and this is the rule, this is the way I see it, if I play chord 1, this is what I'm thinking scale wise. I can play major pentatonic or I can play minor pentatonic. Okay, so if it's major pentatonic, this is the full scale. 5/7, 4/7, 4/7, 4/6, 5/7, 5/7. That ties into last week's live on the Wednesday when I talked about the 5 box patterns. This is box 2. If you're in PDF Club, you'll know that if you've seen the PDF with the inversions where the minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic are the same scale shapes, It's just when you move the root, everything becomes organised differently because they are inversions of each other. Major and minor are just inversions of each other. Same ingredients, guys. So what I'm doing with this is, when it comes to chord 1, I would favour a major pentatonic approach first. Now, the major pentatonic, if we want this, we play something called the House of Blues, which is, we get this triangle, and we build it into a rectangle here. There's the root note because the chord is an A7. And that'll help you to find that little spot there. Now, because I'm on that one, that's a happy sort of sound. It's like somebody says to you, I bought you a new garden shed. Right? And you went, oh, great. Yeah, you've got to assemble it. It's in the back garden. Oh, hang on. How long is it going to take? Probably about 2 days. Oh. So you start off initially with happiness, but then you kind of switch. So it's kind of like that. You've got to think about it like this. And I think this is a good way of putting it. So we've got this major pentatonic House of Blues sound here. So we're going, right, I got a shed. Happy. Got a shed. Hang on, I've got to assemble it myself. Then what I do, I put the sad scale as almost like that ending, that emotional shift from that happiness to the realization that you're going to be out in the snow trying to assemble a shed. Yeah. Now what I've done is I've kept this pattern simple. This is on page 58, lesson 52. We've got this bit here. Now this is what I call the Chuck Berry zone, because this is where all the Chuck Berry stuff is. Yeah, all those licks are like that here. We've got places that we can bend notes. And you know what? I'll go through that as well. So let's go back to this major pentatonic. This is the root. We don't bend the root note. If we bend the root note, it means we have to either bend it to this note, a whole step above, or to the minor third. You've got to watch out for this. It's going to be the worst sound if you bend up to the flat 9 here. It sounds off. Listen, it just sounds like you trod on a cat's tail. Sounds wrong. Yeah, we don't want that. What we want is... because we're mixing this idea of got this major sound here, and then we've got this minor sound here, I can take these majors and I can bend that up a half step, so I can go like this. I can finish it with the happy sound. Now, if you remember the lesson that I did talking about phrasing, you could start off with a major sound, go to a minor sound, and then resolve on a major sound. It's completely up to you. Both of these scales have the same root note, which is this A. So we don't want to bend that one. And just to reiterate, using caged octaves, that's on the E string. Jump over onto the D string with the caged octave there. That's an E-shaped octave. So that's an A there. And those are my 3 A's. Those are my root notes. And those are my resolving notes. I want to save those for ending my phrases. So if I go... yeah, when I do that, that says the phrase is over, okay? So now I've got these scales. That I can use, and I can mix between them, because essentially we're creating mixed emotions. That's what the blues is about, guys. So, chord 1. That's what you've got to think. I'm going to play major pentatonic. And I can play minor pentatonic, which is the first place most people start. But you'll start to sound very samey if you do this, it will sound very samey. So what this does, it gives you the little bit of variety to be able to switch around through those. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the dominant pentatonics. Let me explain this. Penta means 5, tonic means tones, so 5 notes. We've got a minor pentatonic, we've got a major pentatonic, but there is also one called the dominant pentatonic, and it's like one of those little hidden secrets that you really need to know. You can play the dominant pentatonic over the top of this as well. Let me put this on top of this chord. It's pretty easy. Go root, second, major third, and then I go fifth, and then play this flat 7 and root. Now you might think to yourself, okay, it's kind of a mix between a major pentatonic. Yeah, there's your major pentatonic. Yeah, which is your My Girl riff. Now you hear it change there when I put it on that flat 7 instead. So what we can do is we can add that to the, gives us a bit of colour, but really all we're doing is adding the third there. And we're just matching the chord. Because the chord's an A7, it's a dominant chord. If it was a major chord, then the major scale would make sense to put that on top. If it was a minor chord, then it would make sense to put the minor scale on top. But because this is a dominant chord, it makes sense to put some sort of dominant scale on top. Shall I go on a tangent? Well, if we're thinking of these as being 5s, yes, because 7th chords are chord 5s, okay? Then this, you could also put Mixolydian on top. You can hear that adds a little bit more of a jazzier tinge to it. So that is something that you've got to make the decision if that's the sound that you want to add to your vocabulary, to the flavour of what it is that you're saying. So you could put that on, and you can do that on each of these chords. Just like with the dominant pentatonic, you can do that as well. So if I move over to this chord 4 here, now what I would normally think to myself here would be, I want to stay with the chord. So I would have root, and I would have second, third, fifth, flat 7. So you see, I can get some fancy bits in there. I like to do this kind of a Clapton-esque trill. I kind of equate that to Clapton. And then I slide down to the third in that scale. So yeah, so but what you would normally do, and it is safe to do, is on this chord here, on the 4 chord, this D7, we're just going to play the minor pentatonic. And that works really well on the 4 chord. We don't play that House of Blues, however. When we play that, can you hear it? It doesn't work. Let's make sure that everybody's on the same page. I'll say it again. You've got the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic on chord 1. You've got the minor pentatonic on chord 4 and the minor pentatonic on chord 5. However, what I've done is I've introduced this idea of something called the dominant pentatonic, which fits on top of each of these. But what you have to do is you build the scale from the root note of each chord. So, 1 chord. I could play a dominant pentatonic over this, and the formula for the dominant pentatonic is root, second, third, fifth, flat 7. 5 notes. Yeah? 5 notes there, okay? But I can round it up. And what I like about this one, it gives me this tritone here. And I always think that that's a bit rockabilly. Stray cat. Yeah, so This little tritone interval here is nice. And hopefully you can see that that major pentatonic, it ties into crossing over between the two of those. So over that 4 chord, we've got the root, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, flat 7 again, but starting from the root note of the 4 chord, okay? Now if I do the same from the 5 chord, I'm just playing these basic shapes here. We can flesh them out and have a lot of fun with them. But then once we have that, then the failsafe, guys, where we all start is box 1. Add the major pentatonic on chord 1. If you feel like doing the dominants over the top, then do the dominant pentatonic as well. Generally, it's not what you can do, it's what you can get away with. So we've got this. Started in the minor on chord 4 there. Turned it into a minor blues. And then I'm thinking to myself, that minor there, look, adds that 4th there, which is really 11th. You see that? It allows me to use that. On that chord, I'm going to use my first finger as my starting finger to launch into the scale. There's the chord. That. Yeah, so now here on the 5, can you hear how that works against that? This pentatonic here, it creates some tension, and then when we move to the 4, it resolves down a little bit more. And then it resolves completely when we go to the chord 1, okay? So there's the 12 bar blues, and you can see that I've really simplified that. It's got the quick change. You see bar 2, I've put D7 in. You could essentially leave that as chord 1, A7 as well, but that would get very boring, and you'd say to yourself, hang on, there's 8 bars of A in this 12 bar blues, which might be the thing that you need to do to just nail it. I'll just play a little bit here, and I'll talk through it. So chord 1 of the 12 bar blues. Now I'm thinking to myself, this is bar 1, yeah, and I'm not holding myself to a metronome, to a drummer, or to any timekeeping. Remember what I said about Son House, that the song is as many bars as it needs to be to get the blues out. Okay, so we've got this one here. I'm not adhering to any tempo, but I'm going to implement that quick change on bar 2, and I'm going to use that sliding anchor, 3rd finger, and move that down to get myself onto this D7 chord here. Now I'm on this D7 chord. Now I know, because I'm on the D7, I'm going to play the minor pentatonic as my basic scale. Put a little lick in. I'm playing the chord and I'm hanging the chord in my mind's ear, if that makes sense. I'm still hearing it. Now I'm back to chord 1. Remember me playing that little D-shaped idea here? Now what happens is it goes back to chord 4. I'm just going to use that pattern that is in page 58, lesson 52. See, I played the lead idea longer than any bar would have lasted. A looper would have fixed me into a fixed thing. The looper is great to do. I haven't got a looper set up for this. Back to chord 1. So now what I've done is I've moved to this one here. So that's where I'm at now. I'm on these last 2 bars here. I'm preparing myself for chord 5 because I know that's the furthest the sound is going to move from chord 1. Okay, we got that there. Chord 5. There. Yeah, you can hear that. Now I'm going to go to 1 and I'm going to play minor. Yeah. Yeah, so. And then I ended on the major. Just to finish it off, just so it gives it a lift at the end, because I know I'm going to go back into a chord 1 again. Here's the minor. See? I went to the 5 way too early. The bit of the dominant pentatonic there. Now you see, guys, it's really simple, and there's a ton of fun to be had with this one. And like I say, we can add this dominant pentatonic in that, and you can see there, just playing those blues, it just chills you, especially when you get plenty of reverb on as well. You've got to take it from this notion you're only playing 1 chord at a time. Yeah, and it's just like, well, okay, you've got the chord. What scale are you going to marry it with? It's like food. You've got some steaks. What are you going to marry the steaks with? What's going to go with that? It's complementary things that you want with that. And don't forget, this isn't the only kind of blues that we have. We have minor blues as well, which I talked about in the 5-hour session I did the other week. Okay? With this, you can hear that there's lots and lots of different techniques. I did a video on techniques, but I'll just explain something. Let me just take these scale patterns, and what I want you to do is, if you've got this book, get that page up, look at these scale patterns, get a pencil on and write notes on stuff. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you in this major pentatonic pattern. If I go like this, got this pattern here, right? Now, like I said, the root note is a no-no for bending. And this one here, I do like that one because we can bend it up a half step. So this ties into a lesson I've got up and coming called Where Do I Bend the Strings? So bending, if we think about the techniques, I think there's 7 techniques that you need to learn. I'm bending up to this here. And when I'm on there, I'm putting my vibrato at the top of the bend. Vibrato is a bend as well. Now when you bend a note, what I do is I take the note that I'm going to, the target note, which happens to be this 8th fret here. I play that note and I record it in my head. I go down to the note I'm bending from, and then I bend it up to that. So that's how I do that. So I take that one there. That's going to be 8th fret to the 10th fret. When I bend, notice I've got more than one finger on the string as well. I need to reinforce, and you need the strength of the thumb there just to help you. To give you that opposing force. Keep that bent up. I quite like doing this little thing that is a bit of a Jimmy Herring thing. Bend up, slide up to the note, then come back down again. Back down and... bit Chris Buck, a bit Jimmy Herring, but it's a bit Derek Trucks in a way, but with frets. Yeah, so... So if this happens here, look, so when I get to this string here, yeah, that is, if you think about it, well, that's a 9th related to that chord. Wants to slide up there. But what I like to do with this one as well is there's a note in between. So what you can do, you can slide down to it. And you can slide up to the note that's above it. That likes to go to the root here. So you're dipping in and out between that major and minor there. You're utilising that. Now this is what I think is the really cool one. We've got the flat third here. There's the major third. So minor third is here, major third is here. This is the bluesy mooing cow bend. Yes, it sounds like a cow mooing. So when I pull down on that, look, it's like a door handle. Look at the action. I'm rolling on my neck of my guitar there, so. Now I can bend it up to that and it sounds resolved, but I like to leave it slightly short so it doesn't quite get there. And it makes it a little bit sadder, I think. So flat third to major third, it'll slide up nice. See where that comes in? Yeah, so you get that majory sound here. You can roll, you can even do that little turnaround thing there. You can do this here. I can bend up to this half step here. So I start on the major third, I'm bending up to the 4th, and then when I release it, pull off, and then I go to the root here. Yeah, so that's nice to do as well, going from the 4th to the 3rd. Bending. But this, mooing cow. Moo. That's based around that idea of what you can do with each of those scale degrees. So the 3rd, we'll mess around with that flat 3rd. The 5th, I think to myself, okay, so I've got the 5th here, I've got the 6th here. So I'll slide in between those. That's kind of cheery. And then I've got the root, which I don't bend. And then I've got the second here, which I can bend up a half step to get into the minor pentatonic. Now, when I'm on the minor pentatonic, don't bend the root, bend the flat third. The flat third here. To bend it up a whole step. What's also good with that, I think I'll probably pick this up off a Gilmore thing, is when I go down with the pick, I mute the strings here, put a rake in before you bend, and that just adds a little bit of oomph to it. So there's my minor pentatonic, that's the root. So I can bend the 8. You should be on the second pattern here with your pencil. We've got that diagram there, which is really part of box 1. What we can do there is we can bend that 8th fret, put your pencil on that, put a little arrow that says you can bend it up a whole step. This one, 8th fret on the B string, you can do the same. You can bend that up a whole step because that's the flat 7. This is the flat 7 and this is going to be the root. So what I can do is I can bend up to the root, which is the same note as this. Yeah. So there's my flat 7 there. And then I have the 5th here again. And then I've got the depends which chords underneath it. Anyhow, but scale wise, we're going to think of this as the 4th. I can bend that up a half step to that flat 5. The thing about the G string I think is interesting as well is you can pull it down as well as push it up. So look, I'm pulling the string towards the ground here. And I'm using 3 fingers to do that. I need to put something on these strings here because I get a lot of ringing out, a lot of extra noise that I don't want. But see, I'm pulling down there. But equally, what I could do is I could push up. But the thing with pushing up is you gather the other strings as you go up. So you have to mute on the strings with this hand. And I'm pushing that up a whole step, but I've got the half step that I could do there as well. So I could go. So I can push up, and that's a good exercise in itself. Bend that up. See, I'm going. Playing that in my head. That puts me back on there. Right. Hopefully that makes sense, guys, and you've taken some notes and you've scribbled all over things. If you're in PDF Club, I will put a little addendum together. These are already in the books, but I'll put a little addendum together with bending the strings and putting it all together in one sort of thing. It ties in with the PDF that I dropped in the other day as well. There's nothing wrong in watching things a few hundred times. You're going to have to do that until it sticks. But the most important thing is just to play stuff. Remember what I did as well, guys. I could change the key with this and just play around with that there. And then you have this self-contained blues. No looper needed. No 12 bars constraining you because that's not what it's about. If it's your first time, you've enjoyed this, then thank you for coming along. If you haven't got the book, here's the advertisement. You can get the book there. All these lessons that I do, they all connect. And I think I put in the Fretboard Fraternity about the idea I had with the book and how everything tied in. Fretboard Fraternity, free community. You can come along and make friends in there. I love it. And if you're interested in PDF Club, then that's the link for PDF Club there. All that remains is for me to say thank you very much for turning up. Thank you for the super chats, guys. I really appreciate them. And I'm going to remind you, you are learning for yourself. You might be learning to get chicks. But I want you to remember, you're doing it for yourself, guys. You're doing it for yourself.